The asteroid Pallas Athena represents our capacity for strategic thinking, pattern recognition, creative intelligence, and the way we fight for justice. It is the archetype of the warrior queen who rules not through brute force, but through brilliant planning, objectivity, and intellect. When this fiercely cerebral, structured energy is placed into the 12th house of the natal chart, the domain of Pisces, Neptune, the subconscious, and the unseen, a fascinating and deeply complex psychological dynamic emerges. To understand Pallas in the 12th house, one must first understand the inherent tension between the planetoid and the house itself. Pallas loves clarity, boundaries, logic, and visible order. The 12th house, by contrast, is the realm of the boundless, the dissolved, the hidden, and the irrational. It is the collective unconscious, the repository of repressed memories, dreams, and spiritual transcendence. Placing the strategist in the house of the mystic means that your intellectual and analytical gifts are turned inward, operating from the shadows of your psyche. The hidden strategist. If you have this placement, your intelligence is not loud, overt, or easily quantified by traditional metrics. You possess a profound, quiet genius for seeing patterns where others see only chaos. Because the 12th house rules things that are hidden from casual view, your strategic abilities often operate on a purely intuitive or instinctual level. You might find yourself knowing exactly how a complex situation will play out, or intuitively understanding the solution to a multi-layered problem, without being able to explain the step-by-step logic that brought you to that conclusion. Your mind compiles data from your environment, subtle shifts in body language, emotional undercurrents, and historical repetitions, and processes it in the background of your awareness. This can create a sense of alienation in your early life. You may have felt that your insights were dismissed because they didn't fit into standard, linear frameworks. Pallas in the 12th house often speaks to a child who saw the unspoken truth of family dynamics or social structures but was forced to keep those observations secret. Over time, this breeds a highly sophisticated defense mechanism. You become an invisible observer, a psychological chess player who understands the board completely but prefers to move from behind a curtain. Healing through pattern recognition. The 12th house is traditionally associated with undoing, self-sabotage, and psychological blockages. With Pallas here, your greatest tool for healing and self-mastery is your intellect, but it must be applied to your own subconscious. You have a unique ability to act as your own therapist. While many people struggle to see their own blind spots, you possess the capacity to step outside of yourself and objectively analyze your own psychological patterns, defense mechanisms, and karmic loops. However, because this house represents things that are hard to access, you may undergo a long period of your life where your strategic mind feels blocked or turned against you. When misaligned, Pallas in the 12th house can manifest as an overactive, anxious mind that tries to use logic to control things that are inherently uncontrollable, such as emotions or spiritual crises. You might try to rationalize away your pain or create elaborate mental frameworks to protect yourself from feeling vulnerable. True integration occurs when you realize that your intellect is not meant to conquer the 12th house, but to map it. When you use your pattern recognition to understand your dreams, your artistic impulses, and your psychological triggers, you unlock a profound source of wisdom. The spiritual and creative warrior. Pallas Athena was a patron of the arts, particularly crafts that required precision, weaving, and design. In the 12th house, this artistic impulse takes on a deeply spiritual, ethereal, or cinematic quality. You are likely drawn to creative mediums that bridge the gap between the material and spiritual worlds. Music, photography, filmmaking, poetry, and abstract art are all areas where your Pallas can thrive. You excel at taking the formless, chaotic imagery of the collective unconscious and giving it structural form. Your art can become a strategy for healing, both for yourself and for the audience who witnesses it. Furthermore, your sense of justice and activism, core traits of Pallas, is deeply tied to the marginalized, the forgotten, and the institutionalized. The 12th house rules prisons, hospitals, monasteries, and anyone who has been cast out by society. Your warrior spirit is activated on behalf of those who do not have a voice. You make an exceptional advocate, counselor, or reformer behind the scenes. You are not interested in the glory of the battlefield, you are interested in the systemic restructuring of how we care for the vulnerable. You might work quietly within large institutions, charities, or spiritual organizations, orchestrating massive changes from a position of low visibility. Embracing the wisdom of the unseen. The ultimate journey for someone with Pallas in the 12th house is to learn to trust the wisdom of the unseen. You must bridge the gap between the head and the heart, recognizing that intuition is not the enemy of logic, but its highest evolution. Your mind is a receiver for cosmic patterns. When you quiet the noise of the external world through solitude, meditation, or creative immersion, the tactical blueprints you seek will naturally rise to the surface. By honoring the mystery of the 12th house, you transform from a frustrated thinker trapped in a maze of your own thoughts into a profound seer, capable of navigating the deepest waters of human experience with absolute clarity. When Pallas Athena moves through the 12 signs of the zodiac, she changes her tactical armor. The sign tells us how you process information, the specific flavor of your creative intellect, and your preferred style of problem solving. Here is how Pallas operates across every sign. Pallas in Aries. This is the archetype of the pioneer and the tactical initiator. You think fast on your feet, thrive under pressure, and solve problems with bold, decisive action. Your strategy is offensive rather than defensive. You would rather cut through red tape with an immediate, courageous move than spend weeks planning. Pallas in Taurus. You possess a grounded, pragmatic intellect that excels at material and financial strategy. You see the long game, building your plans on solid, tangible foundations. Your creative intelligence shines in physical mediums, architecture, gardening, or physical craftsmanship, where patience and sustainable design matter most. Pallas in Gemini. Your mind is a hyper-connected network of information. You solve problems through language, wit, and versatility, shifting strategies seamlessly as new data comes in. Your intellectual strength lies in finding connections between vastly different ideas, making you a brilliant debater, writer, or media strategist. Pallas in Cancer. Your intelligence is deeply intertwined with emotional intuition and a protective instinct. You excel at reading the emotional climate of a room and formulating strategies that defend the vulnerable or nourish a collective group. Your pattern recognition is closely tied to memory, family roots, and historical cycles. Pallas in Leo. You are the dramatic strategist who uses creative expression, charisma, and personal authority to win battles. You solve problems by looking at the grand picture, often inspiring others to follow your vision. Your intellect is highly artistic, dramatic, and focused on leaving a distinct, memorable mark. Pallas in Virgo. This is Pallas at her most meticulously analytical. You see the world in microscopic detail, spotting flaws, inefficiencies, and broken patterns instantly. Your strategy relies on organization, data, and precise execution. You fight for justice by fixing the practical systems that keep society running. Pallas in Libra. You possess a brilliant intellect for harmony, diplomacy, and relational dynamics. You solve conflicts by seeing all sides of an issue objectively, making you a natural mediator or legal strategist. Your creative eye is exceptionally refined, recognizing the mathematical symmetry and balance in art and design. Pallas in Scorpio. Your mind operates like a deep-sea radar, tracking hidden motives, power structures, and psychological undercurrents. You are a masterful investigator who solves problems by getting to the absolute root of the issue, no matter how dark or complex. Your strategy is fiercely strategic, private, and highly transformative. Pallas in Sagittarius. You are the philosophical strategist who looks at life through a wide-angle lens. You solve problems by connecting them to larger ethical, legal, or spiritual principles. Your intelligence thrives on exploration, global perspectives, and teaching, always seeking the ultimate truth behind the patterns you observe. Pallas in Capricorn. You possess a deeply disciplined, architectural intellect focused on structures, hierarchies, and long-term planning. You don't just solve a problem for today, you build an organizational system to prevent it tomorrow. Your strategy is patient, authoritative, and deeply respectful of time and resource management. Pallas in Aquarius. Your intellect is avant-garde, utopian, and fiercely independent. You see systemic patterns long before they manifest in the mainstream, allowing you to innovate brilliant, unconventional solutions to societal problems. You fight for social justice, humanitarian causes, and scientific or technological progress. Pallas in Pisces. Your strategy is formless, poetic, and guided entirely by spiritual or artistic synthesis. You solve problems not by fighting them head-on, but through dissolution, acceptance, and profound empathy. Your pattern recognition functions through dreams, symbols, and a deep connection to the collective unconscious. When the asteroid Pallas Athena transits your natal 12th house, the cosmic strategist enters the sanctuary of the subconscious. In a birth chart, Pallas represents your capacity for logic, pattern recognition, spatial awareness, and crisp, objective planning. The 12th house, conversely, represents the boundless ocean of the unseen, the realm of dreams, psychological blind spots, karmic debts, and spiritual dissolution. When this highly analytical, sharp-edged archetype moves through the misty, unstructured terrain of the 12th house, it initiates a profound phase of mental restructuring. This transit, which typically lasts anywhere from a few months to a couple of years depending on retrogrades, demands that you temporarily put away your external chessboard and turn your strategic brilliance completely inward. During the years preceding this transit, while Pallas moved through your 10th and 11th houses, your intellectual focus was likely outer-directed. You were busy managing your career, organizing social networks, fighting for public causes, and executing visible plans. When Pallas slips across the threshold of the 12th house, the external gears of that strategic mind stall. Suddenly, the tactical maneuvers that used to work in the material world seem to lose their traction. If you try to force linear logic onto your life or attempt to micromanage your daily schedule during this time, you will likely meet deep frustration. The lesson of this transit is not that you are losing your intelligence, but rather that you are being asked to upgrade your operating system from standard logic to deep intuition. Unmasking subconscious patterns. The primary gift of Pallas transiting the 12th house is the sudden, almost forensic ability to see your own self-sabotaging behaviors. The 12th house acts as a psychological attic where we store everything we don't want to deal with: repressed fears, inherited family traumas, outdated defense mechanisms, and old emotional wounds. Because Pallas is the master of pattern recognition, her light shining in this dark room allows you to see the blueprint of your own psychological traps. You will begin to notice the invisible threads connecting your current anxieties to past experiences. This is an extraordinary period for deep psychological work, therapy, or psychoanalysis. You are granted an objective, detached perspective on your own psyche. Instead of being swept away by an emotional trigger or a recurring nightmare, Pallas allows you to stand back and say, I see the pattern here. Every time I feel vulnerable, I react with this specific defense mechanism. You become the detective of your own soul. This transit gives you the tactical tools needed to systematically dismantle the inner architecture of your anxiety, freeing up massive amounts of psychic energy that were previously bound up in keeping those secrets buried. Stealth strategy and behind-the-scenes planning. While it may feel like your worldly ambitions have gone quiet during this transit, a tremendous amount of structural work is occurring below the surface. This is not a time to launch a major public campaign, start a loud marketing blitz, or demand center stage. Instead, Pallas in the 12th house favors stealth strategy. It is the time of the cloaked planner, the behind-the-scenes architect, and the anonymous author. If you have a massive project to design, a book to write, a research paper to compile, or a complex business strategy to map out, this transit offers the perfect energetic environment for incubation. You will find that your mind craves solitude, and it is precisely within that solitude that your highest genius will strike. By withdrawing from the noise of public life, you allow your brain to synthesize massive amounts of data in the background. The blueprints you draw up in the dark of the 12th house are often the very structures that will bring you massive public success when Pallas eventually crosses your ascendant and enters your first house. Treat this transit as a period of sacred preparation. Spiritual intelligence and creative weaving. Pallas Athena is traditionally associated with creative intelligence, specifically crafts that require intense focus and intricate weaving. In the 12th house, the natural home of Neptune, this weaving becomes metaphorical, spiritual, and artistic. Your creative mind shifts from the literal to the symbolic. You may find yourself deeply drawn to interpreting your dreams, studying sacred geometry, or tracking the astrological patterns of your life. The way you process information becomes holistic rather than linear. You see how everything is interconnected in the great web of the collective unconscious. Your relationship to activism and justice also undergoes a quiet transformation. Pallas is a warrior for the disenfranchised, and the 12th house rules institutions that house those separated from society, hospitals, shelters, prisons, and ashrams. During this transit, your strategic intellect may be pulled toward helping those who cannot fight for themselves. You might find yourself quietly organizing charity drives, working on prison reform behind the scenes, or providing pro bono counseling. You are fighting the good fight, but you are doing it through quiet, compassionate, systemic intervention rather than loud protest. Surviving the mental fog. The shadow side of this transit involves the discomfort that arises when a hyperlogical archetype enters a boundless house. For the first few weeks of this transit, you may suffer from mental exhaustion or an elusive brain fog. Because Pallas wants clarity and the 12th house provides ambiguity, you might experience a sense of intellectual vertigo. If you try to overthink your way out of this fog, you can trigger insomnia, hypervigilance, or intense mental anxiety. Your mind might spin its wheels, creating elaborate, paranoid scenarios to explain things that can only be understood through the heart. To navigate this transit smoothly, you must learn the art of intellectual surrender. You must understand that during this time, a gut feeling is just as valid as a spreadsheet. When a problem arises, instead of frantically analyzing it, sit with it in quiet meditation or sleep on it. Let your subconscious do the heavy lifting. Pallas transiting the 12th house asks you to trust that your inner mind is an incredibly sophisticated supercomputer that functions best when you stop pressing the buttons. By the time this transit concludes, your intellect will emerge sharper, deeply integrated with your intuition, and ready to manifest your newly discovered wisdom into the light of the conscious world. Subscribe, like, and share.